Good morning, everybody, and thank you for joining today's webinar. We'll be focusing around sort of cyber attacks, specifically phishing emails today, and we have two representatives from Aquile, Andy Oldfield and Gordon Young on the webinar, who will be presenting the majority of the content for you. I'm just going to run through some very quick housekeeping just before I hand over. So just to let you know that you will be muted, but you can submit questions via the questions box on the right-hand side of your screen anytime throughout the webinar, and we'll kind of interact with you and answer them as we go. The webinar recording will be made available to you post-webinar, so it gives you another chance to play it back or to share it with your colleagues and use it how you wish. And we do just have a very short feedback form that will pop up at the end of the webinar, and we really appreciate your feedback. So if you could just take a minute or two to fill that out, then that would be great. So I'm now going to hand you over to Gordon, who's going to kick off the webinar. If you have any issues with the audio, if the audio dips out or anything, just pop something in the questions box and we can have a look into it, but it should all be fine. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. Thanks for your time on this rather grey, wet, drizzly day down here in Surrey. Let me just give you a little bit of background on Aquile. Back in 2016, the UK government decided they wanted to try and make UK businesses secure and resilient in cyberspace. So they fed in some money and they built basically a cyber innovation hub, and it was run through GCHQ in Cheltenham. And the idea was to select 9 innovative companies with technology that they thought was world-class and addressed 9 different particular aspects of cybersecurity. And Aquile was the chosen company selected for their phishing. We were one of 140 companies, so there was a lot of selective criteria going on there. And the beauty of this was that GCHQ technical staff had significant technical input and guidance into our phishing product. And they supplied, one of the big things about phishing is machine learning, and they supplied their data sets to enable us to train our machine learning. The second advantage to us was that NCSC provided their socio-technical staff. So we got the very latest academic studies for user interface in terms of how do you provide email threat information to users. So that's been very helpful in creating what we believe is now a world-class product. And over the years, as our companies matured and the technologies matured, our relationship with Cheltenham has deepened, and we're about to become an approved vendor as we go commercial with some aspects of the product for UK defence. So having said that, I will get into the product now. So most of you, I would assume, on the presentation understand what phishing is. Phishing comes with many different types of names, but it's all about deception. That's about deception of you as a person or your company. And usually it's the entry point into your network, and credential theft is often what they're after. So they're after you to make a mistake. They want you to convince you to give them something that enables them to go on and do some things that bad actors want to do. Phishing is not going to get better. Phishing is going to get worse. We see that you can buy phishing as a service now. So for a fairly small amount, you get quite a high return on your investment for your phishing activity. And we can see these dips in summertime as the fishers go to spend their money at the seaside. We see less phishing activity. Over Christmas, we see less phishing activity, and we saw it step up significantly about a week ago. So A few statistics. I'm not going to take you through this slide in detail, but most data breaches that you read about will have started with a general phishing attack. That's just an attack, might be a probing attack, to try and get some initial information to allow them to get into the network, maybe to deposit some malware or get some more credentials or whatever it might be. But the scary statistic is that takes just over 1 minute from when a phishing email is sent out to when the first victim is hooked. So despite all the training, all the defences that are currently in place, phishing emails are not being stopped. Staff are clicking on these dangerous emails and creating an issue for the companies. Even Google and Facebook, with their huge amounts of money and knowledge, can't stop this. So if we look at the right-hand side of this slide, the traditional players, I'll just focus on a couple of them: Mimecast, Barracuda, Cisco Ironport. Mimecast example, very good email management system. That's what it's brought to market for, has some fairly good spam and malware capability, but its phishing is not as good as dedicated designed solutions from the ground up. And that's fairly typical across combined solutions that offer spam, malware, and phishing. We see that continuously, because despite the deployment of these solutions, phishing emails are still getting through to users' inboxes. And then in the middle we have the phishing education vendors, the largest of which is Cofense, fairly well known. Now NCSC takes the view that you shouldn't depend on staff education to combat phishing, because you're basically then asking your staff to fix a weakness in your cyber defences. So while it can be useful to train your staff, that shouldn't be the only thing you deploy to address phishing. Then as we move to the left, we see the rise of the new guard, the attack of the charge of the artificial intelligence vendors. And there's a number of them. But let me just differentiate a little bit. Phishing is really all about the software classifiers, the algorithms that look at each email. Now, the best of these have roughly 30 algorithms that look at the email, and they'll give you roughly maybe 1,000 indicators of compromise. Aquili, with assistance from the Cheltenham staff, and you'll see we're allowed to use their logo, we have currently in excess of 132 classifiers. So we're able to provide something like 17,000 indicators of compromise per email. Now, when you're looking at emails, there's lots of things you're wanting to look at, and the trouble you have with the classifiers is it's architecturally quite difficult to have all the classifiers running in parallel and interacting with each other, which is why the new guard are around 30, 25, 30, 35 classifiers. Our relationship with Cheltenham has enabled us to get over that, and we're currently planning that we'll have in excess of about 200 classifiers by summertime, and that would give us very clearly a nation-state defensive system. And given the furore and what's happening in the Middle East right now, that's something that certainly some sectors of the industry would appreciate. So just to start talking a little bit about our Ajax Intelligence solution, which is the phishing engine. Its IP has been developed by ourselves, although we've been assisted by Cheltenham. The IP is wholly owned by Aquili. So if we look at the left-hand side of the screen, the white background, you can see our DNA from Cheltenham, which is great. One of the advantages that we got with dealing with those chaps was that they were able to guide us and show us what phishing emails look like, not just today, but tomorrow, 2 years, 5 years, ensuring that our solution will be effective for our customers in years to come. And that's non-trivial, the way phishing is evolving with the advent of artificial intelligence being used by the phishers against us. We're a cloud-based service. We integrate easily with Microsoft Office 365 and also with Google-based cloud email. Typically, a deployment on Office 365 takes between 30 and 40 minutes to deploy, whether that's a proof of value or whether that's a full production deployment. And we coexist quite easily with all other solutions that you may have deployed. You may have deployed Mimecast, Barracuda, Ironport. You don't need to change anything. There's no software to deploy for Aquili. We're a configuration exercise on the company's Exchange server, and we will work across all the mail clients and devices that the company uses now and in the future. So no increase in IT support load and no increase in support for your OPSEC staff. So moving to the right-hand side, there's a number of things I want to highlight. So we use a combination of analytical techniques. One of the things that we do is we protect right down to the end user. And in doing this, we create a user profile for that end user to establish what we call the message flow norm. And what we're doing there is understanding the email relationships that staff member actually has. And that enables us to get better insights into deception and impersonation emails, for instance. We also profile the organization. So any organization that deploys Aquili, we will create a profile so that we can learn the typical email flows for that organization. And that also helps give us some insights into advanced attacks, typical probing attacks, and allows us to get an early warning of what might be coming down the wire in terms of a targeted attack on that company. We also have analysis that of course, we look at the metadata of the email, which all phishing solutions should and probably do look at. But we also, rather uniquely, we use NLP, neuro-linguistic programming, to analyze the text, the content of the email. So very uniquely, we are looking to understand the sentiment in that email. What is it the email is trying to get the user to do? Is there emotional content? Is there coercive content? And in that way, we can really take apart the email and understand the threats associated with it. Now, some companies use what we call static dictionary lookups. They're looking for some words like payment, cash, password, account number, and so on. These are relatively trivial to bypass, but Aquili's algorithms are actually looking to analyze the sentiment included in the email. So, dear Gordon, please, could you pay me £10,000 because I've been in a crash in Romania and here's my bank account. That might be quite unusual for me to get that, or maybe someone's asking HR to change their bank account that they pay the salary into. Again, we're able to do these checks to uncover any deception or impersonation that's in there. And our machine learning will continue to learn. So for instance, you've got a user who's in HR and they're quite happily receiving HR related emails. They get promoted and now in the finance department. The types of emails they would receive in the finance department may be quite different. Our machine learning will track and learn that over a number of emails. To build a profile takes more than 50, less than 80 emails. So as a user's job role changes, we will track and update our profile so that we keep false positives to an absolute minimum. And that's important because false positives are something you do want to minimize so that you don't get false information. And the machine learning in our system also learns about new threats, developing threats, evolving threats. So there's your OPSEC staff do not have to go and add new rules to the server for a new attack. All that kind of activity, you can redeploy those people to other things. We take care of protecting your staff, your brand, and your company from phishing attacks. Now, one of the clever ways that we communicate this information to the staff based on the NCSC guidance that we have is we insert coloured banners into the body of the email. So just above where it says, dear Mr. Fish, thank you for etc. etc. We'll put some coloured banners. Now, blue banners are information only; they're advisory, first-time sender, external email, and you can turn these off if you think they're becoming too pervasive. But we've done some statistics on them, and once the system's up and running, machine learning's all in gear, they should not be pervasive. The next thing we do is we insert an amber banner. Now, amber means it's not phishing, but we've seen some things in here that give us cause for concern. So before you, the employee, reply, just take a minute to pause and think about it. Did you expect this email? Is it going to someone you know or on a topic that you're involved with? And the reason for this is we just want to add some lag time into receiving the email and responding to it so that your staff get some thinking time. Because sometimes when they're out of the office, they look at it on their small mobile device, and it's ever so easy just to do a quick reply and move on. And we're encouraging them to have some lag time there, something that's quite unusual. Now, these emails go through to the employee's inbox, and we've rendered them safe because if nothing else is rewriting the URLs, then Aquili will rewrite the URLs and render them safe. So you can allow these emails to go through to your end users because they won't get into any danger. Then we insert a red banner, and these banners can have an email can have pretty much every banner if it's that bad, but red is danger, red is phishing. We're showing a Netflix banner here. This could be your classic Office 365 emails in quarantine. Click here to release them. Again, NCSC recommends that you allow these phishing emails to go through to your end user's inbox because we have identified them, we've highlighted them, and we've neutralized any URLs or nastiness in them. Now, some organizations would say, well, you've identified this as phishing. Actually, I don't want it to go through to my end users. And that's absolutely fine. That's a by organization switch that we can set, and the emails can go to quarantine or whatever. But one of the advantages of letting the neutralized phishing emails go through to the end users is that end users then get an ability to recognize a phishing email because it's very clearly identified for them. And this can help them identify where that phishing information may have come from. Do they need to tighten up their Instagram, the social media accounts? Is it a private email address that's been involved in a breach, and that's where they've got it from? Or has their corporate email been involved in a breach? And should the security department do something about it? If it's been involved in a breach, Cassie works here at Bytes. If Cassie's email's been involved in a breach, maybe it shouldn't be Cassie@bytes.co.uk. Maybe it should be Cassie1@bytes.co.uk, so that we can remove Cassie from the flood. And that's decisions that your organization can take and learn from the work that we've done. So one of the banners that we insert into the email, they are active banners. So whether you're looking at these on your laptop, desktop, or your mobile or your tablet, if you click or touch on the banner, any of them, blue, amber, or red, you'll be taken to a what we found page. So what we're doing here is it's GDPR compliant, but we're trying to give straightforward, clear information in English to the end user about why we classified this as we have. Now in this one, which is from the Netflix email, as you can see from the Netflix domain for the sender, the little threatometer on the right, which would rotate as the page paints in real time, it's against the hard stop of the red. This is definitely phishing. There's no ambiguity here. And you'll notice the two buttons, the blue buttons down there. So we give the user the opportunity to advise ourselves and selected or named people in their organization that I think this might be classified incorrectly, and we get to look at that. But that's actually fairly rare for us, as we've worked very hard to get the classifications correct, and we have a number of interlinked classifiers which help reduce that also. So here again, as they scroll down that page, in plain English, they get this is why it was classified as such. And that can be, again, very useful for them as they're using the social media and so forth. Now, I spoke about we can rewrite the URL links on the way in. We absolutely can do this. If it's not been done in Mimecast, or it's not been done in ATP, then absolutely we can do it. If it's been done elsewhere, then it's just a setting that you switch off, and we won't do it. But when we do it, we advise the user that this particular email has these characteristics. And in this case, we're saying it's from a potentially dangerous email. It's going to, this is exactly where it's going to. And the button to continue, again, is an organization choice. You can decide that if we say it's dangerous, the user cannot continue. And that's an organization choice. So you can either allow the user to continue or not to continue, okay? As you would expect from a company such as us with our DNA from Cheltenham, we are fully GDPR compliant. We will not degrade your GDPR compliance in any way. The only permanently stored information from the email are the to, the from, and the timestamp fields. And that data is stored, encrypted at rest, encrypted in transport, and only specific named people and IP addresses can access that to, from, and timestamp field information. So there's no degradation in your GDPR compliance. Now, one point to bring out is the first point of the slide. We get asked this a lot, especially from government, especially from finance, public sector. We do not at any time and in any way store the content of your email. The email exists in dynamic memory for a few milliseconds while it's being analyzed and is then overwritten. There is no way that we can see, read, or access your emails. So the staff in our organization and any affiliates cannot access that information, which would then render us non-GDPR compliant. So we do have documentation that can back up this assertion if that's needed, if you want to progress, but we absolutely do not store any of the email at all, okay? And that's the end of the presentation. If there's any questions, happy to take them now. Is there anybody out there? My presentation is so good, it's answered every question you might have about our capability for stopping email phishing, compromising your organization and your staff. If there's anything that does come to you on the drive home or the walk across the office, you can email tellmemore@bytes.co.uk and we'll be sure to respond to you ASAP. Okay? Thank you very much. Thanks for your time, and I appreciate your interest in both Bytes and Aquila's email phishing solution. Thank you.